Hello. In this conversation, I thought we'd explore the paradox of waste. Because in an ecological system, in life, in reality, there is zero waste, right? There isn't a single part of our Earth's ecology that isn't part of a number of cycles that doesn't contribute value to life, to the ecology, and that is not intimately connected to that ecology, right? The very nature of an ecology is that everything is interconnected. And so the one, both mythologically and scientifically, the one, we call it the universe, right? There was a big bang at one point, and the possibility field, the probability field, and the actuality of that reality of life radiated out equally in all directions, forming the one, the great whole, the interconnected ecology, where all space, all time, and all patterns of energy, and whatever frequency they are, connect, are inextricably woven. For one, they all came from the Big Bang, right? There isn't a single thing in existence today, there isn't a single person in existence today, and there will be nothing a trillion years from now that did not emerge as potential out of that initial bang, which is kind of magical, right? Because the scientists can't reproduce it in a test tube, right? It's not verifiable. And supposedly, not just everything in this room, which no scientist can condense into a size of a pea, not just everything in your neighborhood or the planet, but everything in trillions and trillions of planets and stars and all the vast space in between, apparently, that's the story, was once the size of a single frozen pea, right? So small you could barely see it with your eye, and it's been expanding ever since. And that's the whole, that's the one. And as an interconnected whole, as something that is, there's no waste, there's no good parts, there's no bad parts. There's just life expanding its possibility, its probability, its actuality in all directions simultaneously. And it's not only expanding, it's becoming more complex. Its relationships with itself are evolving in all kinds of different directions. So that's the one, and that's the garden, that's the ecology. And then through the cut of language, right? Because we have the one, and there's no language, there's no thought in one, right? When someone says, what's going on, and you say everything, it contains everything, but there's no thought, there's no division. There's no consciousness in one, in the way that we think, because our consciousness is framed, is created by the cut of language, right? We take the one and we cut it in half, and with the cut, we create two, we create polarity. And now we have yin and yang, we have up and down, we have right and left, we have hot and cold, right? Before the cut, before language, it just is. It's one. But we create many out of the one. We divide the one with language. We cut it in two in a 1,000 different ways. And having made the cut, we assign symbols, little mouth noises. They're called words. We say B. That's what that flying insect is. B. Why? Why not C? Why not D, right? It's a symbol. It's a little mouth noise that is assigned to a cut. Right? It creates the cut, and it is assigned to the cut, both, right? Because before the knowledge of good and evil, before language, you have innocence, right? Things are. Right? Everything is. And it's all connected. And you can't take the good people and the bad people and the good products and the bad. It's all connected. Right? The one doesn't look at sand on the beach and say that's good, and then look at the rocks that were ground together to create the sand and say that's bad. We do that because we like walking on sand and we don't like walking on sharp rocks when we're barefoot on the beach. So we say, oh, that's such nice sand. And oh, those sharp rocks. But those sharp rocks, when ground together for thousands of years, produced the sand. But we pretend they're separate. We delineate. We break the one into pieces, and with it we fall from the garden with the knife of language into judgment, into discernment, into human consciousness, into the knowledge of left and right, of up and down, right? Of inner and outer. There is no inner without the outer. There's no outer without the inner, but we fall into the delusion, into the slivers, into the slice of consciousness created with the cut of words. Words that say this is a tomato, and this is a tomato plant, and this is the soil that grows the tomato plant. But, right, you don't get tomatoes without tomato plants. How are they separate, right? You don't get tomato plants without sunlight. How are they separate? Right? You don't get soil without composting plants. So how is the plant and the soil separate? It's only separate in our mind. And so we take the one, we take the whole, we divide it into words, and we create a model of reality. And our model of reality has a certain amount of complexity, but is always, all models are incomplete. All models are vastly inferior to the underlying reality. Right? All models are illusions because they're not the reality they're attempting to represent. A word, be, is an illusion. It's not a be, right? We think of be, and so we confuse the symbol with the underlying reality. But the sound be is not a be, right? And the delineation of the word be, something that has this and this and this, but that does not include the ecology that gives birth to the be, is also an illusion, right? Right? If we have an idea of me that does not include the Big Bang, it's an illusion. Because if the Big Bang didn't happen, then neither did you and I. So the idea that we are separate from the Big Bang, the idea that we're separate from our planet, the idea that we're separate from the water that gives us life, is a delusion that can be verified by failure to consume water and air and light and food and, right? It's an illusion. So our models of reality superimposed upon the one, upon the great ecology, do create the illusion of the word called waste. And what is waste? It's that which doesn't fit into the model, right? So if we break our life down to, for example, the work-life balance, well, there's all kinds of things that don't quite fit into that model. Like, can you have a work-life balance and meditate for 30 days, for example, right? Right? If we create a model of reality, a dumbed down symbol of reality, the waste will be the remainder. So in this model, this is the remainder. We have the one out here, we have the remainder here. Now, the remainder is that which is reality, part of the one, that doesn't fit into our model, right? Science is filled with remainders, right? There's a theory, it seems to work, so we use it. It's a model of how reality works. But then there's anomalous data that doesn't fit that theory. And we get rid of it because it's not serving the agenda that we have, right? And the model is serving the agenda. And so we pretend that there's waste, undesirable people, undesirable energy. There is and has never been waste in the totality of all that is in the one. The earth has not once created something that did not lead to the birth and the evolution of something else. Right? From the moment of the Big Bang, life has been creating patterns of energy and relationship. It's been creating and creating and creating. There's no waste. There's not an inch of space in the totality of space that is wasted. It all fits together. It's all an equal part of the one. But our models create waste, as simple as the invention of the word. Now, what does waste mean? It means that we don't want it. That's all it means. It doesn't mean that it doesn't have a purpose. It doesn't mean it didn't have a purpose before we turned it into what we call waste. It is. It's as much part of all that is as anything else. But the word waste, having created it for that which we don't want, and what is it that we don't want? What we don't want is the remainder. We don't want what doesn't fit into our model, right? So if I'm a shoemaker and I buy a piece of leather that's shaped like a cow's body, there are certain parts of that leather which won't lend itself to fit into my model of my type of shoe. And so those will be called scraps. And then I have to get rid of the scraps. Why? Because I don't know what to do with them. Life knows what to do with them, but I don't. And so I call them waste, that which I don't know what to do with. And I don't know what to do with all of the anomalous energy and data and scraps that don't fit into my model of living, my model of myself. Like if I'm a good person, that's a model, that's an idea. And good people do this and think this and feel this, more ideas. But I'm thinking this, and that doesn't fit into the model. I say, go away, thought, right? That's a waste thought. That's not a good thought. Go away. Why? Because I don't know what to do with it. I don't know where it came from. I don't know how I produced it. I don't know why I produced it. And I don't know what to do with it to create more well-being. It's threatening my identity. It's threatening my model of reality. So I create the illusion of a waste thought, a thought that I created but don't know what to do with, a thought that I allowed that infected me through the cultural meme and which I don't know what to do with. So I have this thought, don't know what to do with it. I throw it away, right? Get out of here. You're not welcome here, right? The castaway, the outlaw. What's the outlaw? It's the pattern that's outside the line, that's created by the cult. The cult creates the line, and the outlaw is outside of the line, and I don't know what to do with you, and so you're now a waste person. Now, why is there no waste? Right? Because many of us, myself included at times, feel worthless, feel unloved, feel unseen, invisible, unwanted. Why? Well, there are certain parts of me that as they try to express and exist, they're met with silence, with disinterest, with a lack of funding, with all kinds of things. And so that thought, that part of me that is creating isolation in a cultural framework that outcasts feelings and thoughts and traits that are deemed to be undesirable in the current model of what a desirable person is. Those parts are getting me isolated, and I want to be accepted. I want to be valued. And so I try to throw out the parts of me that don't fit into the model. And I try to cultivate the culture's area of recognition of positivity. That's the area in here, right? That's the area that fits in the model, right? Be this enthusiastic, but not that enthusiastic. Be like this, but not like that, right? Now, in the illusion of the reality within the conscious mind, in the illusion of reality within the culture, within the identity, there is waste. There's desirable qualities and undesirable qualities. There's desirable goals and undesirable goals. There's steps forward and there's steps backwards. And these are all created with language. But these are part of the system. They're not real. They're an illusion of the conscious mind, right? In the one, there is no waste. All traits are useful. All thoughts have value. All feelings have value. All people have value. All behavior has value. So I thought we'd go down a little bit of a rabbit hole and look at, like, how do outcasts have value? Because we have a very clear system of the politically correct, the good people, right? And it's not a very balanced system, so we're not going to do a very balanced drawing. But we have out here all this terrain that's unwanted, undesirable, outcast, outlawed. These parts of the psyche, these parts of the possibility field that the cult will shame, traumatize, humiliate, isolate, attack, blame, if we go into that territory. So how are the people in those territories helping life? Now, they're not helping the model of reality that is our culture. But how does, for example, think of a computer hacker, right? So right now there are hundreds of thousands of people around the world who are spending all their time trying to undermine banking and money systems and steal people's money. It's illegal, it's outrageous, these people are bad, unconscientious, horrible people that the world needs to get rid of. We need to lock them up, we need to find them, we need to punish them, right? this is our cult model, right? Because these are outlaws. But how do they actually help the system, right? Well, really smart companies hire these people and give them a reward for finding flaws in their system. Why? Because intelligent people understand that all models, all technologies can be improved and have flaws. And who are the main drivers of iteration? Like, why is Microsoft or Google hiring so many people to code and figure out security? Why? If nobody hacked any of the systems ever, and nobody ever would hack any of the systems, then why spend anything on cybersecurity? Why learn about cybersecurity? Why improve your model, right? If it's a crappy piece of software that crashes in this, but nobody ever steals it if it accidentally ends up in someone's account, well, they just figure out where it was supposed to go and send it back. Why have excellent software, right? Why? Well, because of those hackers. Meaning those few 100,000 people of excellent hacking ability that are crippling and threatening to cripple every software on the planet, shut down energy grids, steal money and all that. Those few 100,000 people are directly responsible for maybe 50% of the excellence in software today. Right? Now, why aren't people able to just lie, right? People love lying and saying, oh, there's no problem here, right? When the CEO of the company gets together in a meeting and says, do we have any security flaws? Is our software the best it can be? And everyone says, oh, sure, it's the best it can be. Who calls their bluff, right? Well, if it's the best it can be, why did you get hacked and 1 million of our customers' data got siphoned off here? And why has our stock price gone down 30% if we have this top grade software, right? So it's the outlaws that actually challenge growth and evolution for the in-laws. Now, if the in-laws couldn't grow and evolve, wouldn't grow and evolve without the outlaws, don't they need the outlaws to motivate them to get off their butts and do excellent work? And if they need the outlaws, then why not give them a reward, right? Well, in an either-or system, right, if one thing is good, the other has to be bad. Right? That's a troubling idea that we've invented. It's not true. Reality isn't saying that. We are. We invented the idea of either-or because it's simpler than both and. So we use it because we're lazy. It's not real. Right? But that causes us problems. Right? We've locked up so many people because we haven't learned how to benefit and create creative challenges between our in-laws and our outlaws. Now, the same is true with the police. You look at a police person, you say, oh, wow, you're doing all this great work. Well, could they do all that great work if there weren't any criminals? Could they keep the city safe if it was already safe, right? Would they invest billions in the latest technology if there weren't any criminals? Now, you look at something like the internet, like many other technologies are invented by the military. Now, what's the military going to do inventing feverishly all these technologies if there's no one to fight? If you look out there and say, well, they're our friends and they're our friends and they've never done anything different than we do, they agree with us on all points for the last 10,000 years, why would you invest in the internet? Right? So if you invest in the internet and then end up saving 90% on postage for the rest of time, 90% of the time and 90% of the cost of postage has just disappeared. If the internet is invented as a response to bad people, the Russians, right? If you're an American, the Americans, if you're a Russian, right? If you grow as a technological entity, primarily because of the bad people, and growth is a good thing, then the bad people are the most important people in your life if you want to keep living. Now, why would you want to keep living? Well, in the history of life, in the history of the planet, life has rendered extinct or radically changed 99% of all the life forms alive today. Meaning if you take the beginning of the planet and look at today, and then look at, how many of the things today were like this 100 million years ago, 300 million years ago, 1 billion years ago. Almost everything here today is radically different than it was 1 billion years ago. Which means that 1 billion years from now, almost everything here today is going to be radically different. It's going to be extinct, or it'll be radically changed. Now, do you want your form to lead to extinction or lead to evolution, to change? Well, if your enemy is helping you evolve and change more than your friends are, and you want some remnant of your existence to be around in 1 billion years, then you need more enemies, right? Because they're putting you to the test, right? If you're a sprinter in the Olympics and everyone can run 3 miles an hour and you can run 18 miles an hour, you're not going to train 8 hours a day for 6 months so that you can run 18.5 miles per hour while everyone else is still running 3 miles an hour. Why would you do it, right? Legitimately, calm down, right? It's no big deal. You'll win the gold medals, all of them, all the time for the rest of eternity. In your 80s, you'll be winning the gold medals. Just spend time with your family, right? But if someone else just ran 19 miles an hour and you're at 18.5, well, now your enemy has required you to step up your game, right? Again, how are they enemies if they're responsible for your growth? Well, what about prisoners, criminals? Well, where did they come from? Right? Did they emerge out of nowhere, or did they have something to do with the intergenerational statistics of your culture? Like, is this rapist the first rapist in the history of humankind? Or has your cult been producing rapists for the last 10,000 years? What percentage, right? In the United States, 25% of the population has participated in what is termed sexual abuse, meaning you have to define something. And you need 2 people, right? You can't have sexual abuse without 2 people. So 2 people have to participate in sexual abuse for there to be sexual abuse. And they have to participate. One person has to participate by initiating it, and the other person has to participate by receiving it. Well, more than 25% of the population in the United States has participated in initiating and or receiving what is called sexual abuse. And the next generation is statistically likely to be the same as the last, give or take a few percent. Now, if you pretend that these are isolated instances, right, which is what every cult does to defend the status quo, is it pretends, right, it's the old phenomena of scapegoating. You take a random goat, you blame all the tribe's problems on the goat, you curse and beat the goat, you throw stones on the goat, you tell the goat, get out of here, goat, get out, right? We never want to see you again. Leave the tribe, goat, right? The goat looks back, what about my hay? You throw another rock on it, get out of here. Right. Well, that's scapegoating. You've gotten rid of one of your goats. Are you better off? Or have you protected your stupidity, right? Because anyone who seriously believes that stoning a goat is going to lead to increased water supply relative to drilling a well, you see, they weren't very sophisticated when they drove their goats out into the desert. They didn't have diamond bits, they didn't have steel. Right? The obvious thing, if it's not raining, is drill a well, right? Put up some desert, condensation capture devices, right? Dig tunnels, store your water. You know the idea that if you run out of water, you don't stone goats. Now, what about a birth defect, right? If there's malnourishment in the community, you grow healthier organic vegetables and eat more of them. You don't stone a goat. Well, our prisoners, our villains, our traumatized and institutionalized children that we traumatized and then institutionalized, that we infected with our mental, emotional, physical viruses and then gave them to an institution because we didn't know how to fix the problem that we solved. They're not waste to an intelligent culture. They're a diagnosis of the inadequacies and imperfections in the culture. And so if you use the symptoms of chronic and unnecessary suffering that are produced by the culture as the training indicators, as the arrows to say, oh, your culture needs to evolve here. In other words, once you stop doing the protocols that produce 25% sexual abuse, you will have less sexual abuse, right? So who's going to teach you, right? If you have a don't ask, don't tell culture, I'm not going to tell you about my sexual abuse, and I'm not going to ask you about it. That's a don't ask, don't tell culture. If you have a don't ask, don't tell cult, that's a defense of the status quo, right? We can all pretend that we don't live amongst sexual abusers and sexual abuse enablers or victims, right? Because part of the problem is, when parents abuse their children and then tell them that I'm doing this because I love you, particularly sexual abuse, and the most common forms of abuse come from family members or close to family friends, right? So they traumatize children and confuse children and abuse children more than any other demographic is your family and those close to your family. So if we were really scientific, what we would tell children is stay away from your family and close family members and go spend time with strangers because statistically, they're going to hurt you less. right? Just get to know some strangers. They're way safer than your parents. That's, right, something to explore, right? Of course, there's something wrong with that statistic, but, you know, we're constantly telling kids, don't trust strangers, while most of the abuse is happening at home. Well, if you abuse someone and tell them that it's love, and that the point of life is to seek love and connection, and you model abuse, well, then when you get old, you're going to look for someone to abuse you, because we all need love. So there's all kinds of people that say, please hit me, fuck me, do anything you want to me. Just don't leave me. I need love. Right? Well, that's certainly enabling abuse. It's not a passive role. It's not like you're a 2-year-old infant happily dreaming only to be beaten up by your parents or older brothers, right? You're out looking as a 20 or 30-year-old, please, someone, humiliate me, abuse me, whip me, beat me, put me down, use me, so that I can feel like I'm in family terrain, familiar terrain. Well, that's obviously playing a part in it, right? So what do we do in high school to shift those patterns, right? And why would we shift them in a culture that's so committed to avoiding that anything's wrong? Because every cult in human history has all done the same racket. Every cult throughout humanity's history has all done the exact same thing with their cult members. This is how it's done. This is the best way to do it. This is how we do it. It's how your grandparents did it, your great-parents did it, and they did it because it's the best thing. The way we do it is really the only way to do it, right? There's these other weird people, but you don't want to listen to them. Do it this way, because we said so. This is the way to do it. If you want to get on in this world, you want to survive, you want to be happy, copy me. Do it the way I do it, because I said so, right? That's the basis of a self-referential cult. And every single cult in human history has done that to their children. You should eat raw fish on rice and seaweed. Why? It's the way we've always done it. It's the way we did it. It's the only way to eat. You should eat hamburgers. Why? Right? It's the same old racket, right? This is the only way to do it. Now, who is going to break the cult? Who's going to wake the cult up? Who's going to challenge the cult in its stupidity, right? Endless chronic abuse and endless burying it, right? Who's going to do that? Well, abuse survivors, perpetrators, right? Everything's fine, don't question, don't bother me. Oh, your child got raped. I guess there might be something wrong. What am I going to do, right? This culture doesn't tell me what to do in this situation. Report it. Yeah, but the statistics aren't good, right? The justice system re-traumatizes children in sexual abuse court cases more than the sexual abuse. In other words, if you really want to fuck up your children, send them to court after the sexual abuse to get justice for them, by forcing them to re-traumatize themselves with traumatically illiterate attorneys and judges that could give a damn about the psychological impact of the court case. All they care about is the court protocol, right? Well, that doesn't work very well, right? But how do you get things that don't work very well to grow? You have rebellions, you have competitors, you have anomalous data, you have science that proves that what you're doing is wrong. And who's the evidence? All the failure, all the pain that's in your cult, in your system. That's the raw ingredients for change. Like, If everyone was abused in your culture and they were all truly living happily ever after, why would you ever change the abuse? Like, here's how to live happily ever after. Abuse your children, right? No, you change with the wreckage from the cult's perspective. This person is depressed. I didn't want my child to be depressed. Yeah, but every time they opened their mouth, you told them that they were dumb, so they're depressed. They believed you, so they started acting dumb, and now other people tell them they're dumb. Now they're depressed. Well, I don't want that. Well, then you're going to have to change the protocol of how you raise children. Well, I'm too lazy, right? Well, you're going to have to live with a depressed person for the next 30 years and weigh that every decade. Am I still too lazy to do something about that? And of course, many people are. But there's a little bit of a movement towards growth, right? I don't want to look at my faults, but I don't like ruining my child's life for the next 40 years either. Okay, I'll look at my faults, right? So that what? So that you can improve them, so that you can grow, so that you can evolve. Well, I don't want to grow and evolve. So you just want to go extinct, like 95% of all patterns of energy will. They go extinct, right? Because they were lazy. They didn't grow, right? It's the 1% that outperforms that grows, that becomes part of life, that consumes itself eventually, consumes all the old energy patterns and re-expresses itself in the new energy pattern that's more intelligent than the old. Still no waste. Well, I feel hatred for this person and I don't want to feel hatred for this person. Go away, hateful feeling. I'm a spiritual person. Spiritual people don't have hate. So go away. Let me suppress this feeling. Well, it doesn't work, does it, right? Try and throw it out there, but it seeps in. God, all this hate. Well, what do, right? Do you deny it? How intelligent is that? You run away from it, right? What do you do? So the hate is a challenger to the identity, to the model of reality. Maybe I'm not a spiritual person, or maybe sometimes I'm a spiritual person and sometimes I'm not a spiritual person. Or maybe spiritual people have hate from time to time. What am I going to do with it? It's not, my model is flawed, like all models, but it is the tension with the anomalous data that is challenging me to adjust my flawed model of reality, in this case, my flawed model of myself. Right? Because if my model of myself doesn't include hate, but I notice, oh my goodness, I have this feeling, my model is incorrect. The hate is not incorrect, meaning it's there. It's been there as a human emotion for millions of, or hundreds of thousands of years. That physiology, that idea that I'm helpless and I'm in pain and something is a threat to increased and sustained pain. And I don't know what to do and I can't do anything about it because I'm incompetent, so I hate it. But once I'm masterful, right? Hate challenges growth. What do you do when you hate someone? You try to beat them, you try to push off. Well, what do you do there? Well, you grow, you get stronger. You may die, they may die, right? But in the meantime, you're challenging, you're growing, you're trying to become bigger, trying to outwit the villain, and you become stronger. Now, once you become truly masterful, nobody threatens you, right? if you're not afraid of death, if you're not afraid of poverty, if you prefer wealth and know how to create lots of money, well, why are you frightened and hurt so that you'd hate someone? No, you feel great generosity when you come from real strength. Because when you have real strength, you don't give away your power to other people. Because you've got mastery, right? When you say, don't hurt me, what you're saying is, I don't know how to stop you from hurting me. And I don't know how to create people in my life that don't want to hurt me anyway. I don't know what I'm doing. So you're in control of my life, and please don't use it to hurt me. Oh, you hurt me, you bastard, right? Well, you created a scenario with a malicious person capable of hurting you, and you created a scenario where you weren't able to defend against that or anticipate it, and so you got hurt. That's a big chunk of incompetence relative to mastery, where you'd say, oh, that's someone who needs to hurt people from time to time to feel powerful. Fine, I'll pretend I'm hurt so they can feel powerful and safe. Or let me create someone else who likes praising people, right? Because they feel powerful praising people, and that's more fun, right? But then you've got to become more competent. I've got to become more competent. And when we succeed and we've created a reality where people aren't trying to hurt us, we don't hate people for hurting us because we created friendships that didn't involve that. Right? So no more hate out of mastery, but hate isn't the problem. The incompetence is the problem. Now we could say, well, it's their fault. They haven't grown enough, so they're trying to hurt me. Okay, so teach them. Well, I don't know how. Okay, so learn how. I don't want to learn how. I just want to resent them for not learning on their own. Okay, so you've created resentment. But is getting rid of them really the solution, or is developing mastery so that you can either accept incompetent people, they're all over the place, or what, right? There's no waste in reality. There's waste in our models. Get rid of those people, do this, do this. But life doesn't see it that way. Someone that's spreading disease to millions of people with the latest virus, whether on computers or otherwise, has value in the ecology. A lion that eats off the sick and the elderly in the gazelle herd has value in the ecology. In gene selection. Now, life has a purpose for everyone and everything. Life doesn't judge this is better than this is better, right? Life is growing. Life is becoming more. And that which is more and that which is growing consumes that which is less sophisticated, less excellent, less masterful. But it's life consuming life, right? When you're talking about the one, there's no ego, saying, the dead skin is not saying, why did you rub me off? That was me. I was with that body for 7 years. You're so ungrateful. No, the dead skin rubs off, new skin comes, and it's all life. Right? That's the transcendent consciousness that we fell from as we perceive ourselves primarily as a pattern of energy looking at the world through language, terrified of death, frightened of our own demise. Thanks for joining me.